LSU is a difficult team to project. On paper, they have all the talent in the world, and a new coach from Notre Dame in Brian Kelly that has consistently proved himself as one of the best in the game. But is one offseason enough time to fix all of the mess that Coach O left behind? Let's start with his offense. While Kelly has a style specific to his own teams, all indications imply that former Cincinnati offensive coordinator Mike Denbrock will be calling plays for the Tigers. Denbrock's offense has been pretty balanced in his time in Cincinnati. However, one big outlier stands out. Denbrock loves stretching the field horizontally, ranking 4th in the country in percent of routes that were out routes. He had many ways he could feature these routes in his passing game. Arguably the most simple is this clear out concept, where these two receivers clear out their man, which opens up a deep out downfield. He also runs this rub variation of a flood concept. In flood, 3 receivers flood the field at 3 levels, usually with a go route, an out route, and an arrow route. But Denbrock has the out route release inside to set a pick for the arrow and open up an easy completion for the quarterback underneath. Denbrock also wasn't afraid to take shots with his athletes. In this play, Houston rolls his safety down into cover 3 to account for the extra tight end that Cincinnati's brought in, which essentially gives a one-on-one to this boundary receiver. Cincinnati takes the shot, and it pays off. These shot plays may be especially relevant for the Tigers this season, as there won't be many teams who can match up with their receiver core, which is comprised of a talented group of sophomores and headlined by Kayshon Boutte, who looked to be one of the top receivers in the country last year before an injury sidelined him for the rest of the season. Despite all of this, the passing game may have a few roadblocks early in Kelly's tenure, and that's mostly due to who will be throwing to these talented receivers. These are inherently difficult throws to make, but early on, redshirt freshman Garrett Nussmeier may be their best bet to making them consistently. Nussmeier is a gunslinger who has a rocket for an arm and makes quick decisions. He flashed a bit in his limited snaps last season, but tended to trust a bit too much in his arm and made some questionable throws, which is to be expected for a true freshman. The other quarterback vying for the starting role is Arizona State transfer Jaden Daniels, who looked like one of the best quarterbacks in the country his freshman year, but that production tapered over time as his accuracy became more and more of an issue. However, his athleticism and his ability to expand the run game, much like Cincinnati's own Desmond Ridder last season, may allow him to take the edge over Nussmeier. Last year, Denbrock's rushing game based out of inside zone, which is a basic running play where the offensive line steps forward and towards their gap, or zone, in order to get a vertical push. He would then dress up that inside zone with his H-back. This is the base play called split zone, where this H-back would cross the line of scrimmage and block out this defensive end. This opens a cutback lane and forces the linebacker to stay true to his interior run game responsibilities. Then they would bluff this split block and instead read this defensive end, who in this situation crashes towards the running back. Since the linebacker is stepping up hard expecting split zone, he becomes an easy block for the H-back and it leads to a touchdown. And they can further stretch this linebacker's responsibilities by releasing the H-back into an arrow route for an easy dump-off pass for the quarterback. These concepts are ones that Daniels should be familiar with, since he's run many of them in his time in college. Here's the same bluff-free dump-off at Arizona State to current FSU wide receiver Johnny Wilson. And they'll need all the help they can get in the running game. This offense's weakest position may be tight end, which is a position that Kelly is known for in his time in Notre Dame. Plus, they'll be breaking in a talented but young offensive line while relying on transfer Noah Cain to be their feature back, who's coming off a pretty serious injury at Penn State. Now let's move on to the defense. The defense is anchored by one of the best defensive lines in the country. BJ Ojulari gives an elite twitchy pass rush from the outside, while Jaquelin cements the inside of their 3-4 from the nose guard position. However, the player that could put the cherry on top of this unit is sophomore Maason Smith. While he got pushed around a bit last year as a freshman in the SEC, he may have the highest athletic ceiling of the bunch. Behind them is a group that is about as physically gifted as they come, but couldn't seem to put it together last season. Here this linebacker gets sucked up on an inside zone, foregoing his gap responsibility, which allows for a cutback and a big gain. Here's another example where this backer over-pursues on an outside zone, which allows for another broken run. They were a particular detriment in the passing game, coming in 100th in opposing passer rating when targeted. Behind them is even more talent, but some big question marks as well. Their defensive backroom is filled with experience that wasn't gained at LSU. Because of this, I would venture to guess that defensive coordinator Matt House will keep things simple. In his last defensive coordinator stunt at Kentucky, he leaned heavily on cover 3, which allows you to roll an extra safety in the box for run support. He'll also likely lean on the athletes that he has across the field. In the spring game, LSU only showed man coverage, not something that's typical of House's play calling style, but one that simplifies the game for linebackers that struggled to be in the right place last season and a secondary who has never really played together. This LSU team is filled to the brim with talent, but a lot of that talent is either young or transfers. Kelly is undisputably a good coach, so the biggest question isn't if the Tigers get back on the right track, but when. Thanks for watching, especially if you're an LSU fan. Let me know in the comments how I did. We'll be doing an instant reaction right after the game and a film review that hopefully comes out on Tuesday morning. So make sure you stay tuned for this and the rest of the previews going forward on FSU's schedule. Thanks.